Hey guys, Tarke here, and that's my thoughts on the Balanced Manifesto. To elaborate somewhat, yeah, they seem relatively positive for the most part. It's also being confirmed by Bex that they are not planning to nerf defense come 3.17. So, determination in every build still. Nice. Spell suppression on everything still. I've made a little list of things. I'm not going to go into the specifics of every single individual thing that got buffed and changed. What I'd recommend doing is, in your own time, control effing certain things that you like the look of. But the main focus is self-cast spells, bringing down totems, traps, mines, and all that stuff to really focus on self-cast spells. I'll get into some of the specifics on that. And self-attack bow builds. Another couple of things which was kind of interesting that stood out to me was some changes to Mortal Conviction, the March of the Legion boots, and some new support gems. The Blessing support gem, which is the blessing effect from March of the Legion, and there's also a new support gem for triggering marks on hit. Now, I've gone into this. Let's break down each little segment. So, spells. The spell changes seem good generally. For the most part, they've just focused on upping a lot of the base numbers. They've also made some changes to spell gems that we're using Act 5 thresholds. It looks like we're maybe being less reliant on threshold jewels, which is a good thing. I never liked threshold jewels. And they've also given more availability to cast speed on weapons, which is great. I would still be wary of certain channeled skills, because even if you have something which seems great, just with the pace of the game and everything, if it does end up being a self-cast league, I would focus more on stuff that lets you like cast, move, cast, move, cast, move. On that note, they've actually nerfed Unleash. I can see that upsetting some people who are big fans of Unleash. I was never that massive on Unleash. I've tried a few self-cast spell builds in recent leagues, and I actually enjoyed them more while leveling until I got Unleash. Like, I'd enjoy it in the first few acts, but, oh yeah, I can see this maybe being okay. And then I'd get Unleash, and I'd be like, I don't know if I like this. That might be a nerf to SRS, so F my boy Rise there. But generally, I like the idea more so of focusing more on cast speed and less so on Unleash. I used to feel the same way with multi-attack with attack builds, but we're kind of getting a little bit sidetracked. Frostbolt Ice Nether stands out to me if you wanted a recommendation. I used to recommend it to people before these changes, and now they've just like crazy buffed all the spells, so that should be really strong still. So yeah, I would recommend that build. Archmage might also be a little bit better now with the changes with the Blessing support gem. Probably still not the best league starter, probably still maybe like a second or a third build, but Archmage looks... there are some Ignite changes that I'm not a massive fan of. So, with last league, they had a big focus to try and strip away all the random gems which had like increased ailment multiplier or increased ignite multiplier. I always thought that was kind of dumb. And what they did is they kind of like, okay, we're going to buff the baseline of Ignite, and we're kind of just going to let people play Ignite builds and choose what skills you want to choose. Not going to have any of that rubbish. And then Ignite, Detonate Dead came along, and they're like, whoops, that was a mistake. So they've now kind of gone back, and they've done some nerfs to Ignite, and they've now added some skills, have the fire.multi stuff back on there, or ailment scaling back on there, like explosive arrow, etc. Which is all kind of fine. It probably all maths out all right, but I just find it all a little bit clunky, which is a bit of a shame. There's potentially going to be some interesting things. They're saying they work on some stuff with Ignite attack builds. We'll just have to wait and see. But Ignite just feels kind of messy, which I'm not a big fan of. Getting into traps, I also feel like some of the trap changes are kind of messy. They should still be good for the most part, and there should be some real standouts. But again, messy. So they've put this big focus on self-cast spells, and they're like, right, we're going to buff all the self-cast spells. We're like, hang on, if we do that, then isn't everyone just going to do like totems or traps or whatever? So they've nerfed Soul Mantle to kind of like hit those totem builds, but they've buffed the base totems. So stuff like Shockwave Totem, Flame Totem, or Holy Flame Totem, whatever they call it. Those might be better now, but you then have less options, which is kind of a bit lame. And it's the same sort of deal with traps. So they've nerfed the trap support gem, they've nerfed cluster trap, and they've nerfed multi-trap. But then the trap skills, they've given crazy damage scaling to, and It's like, oh, this used to have 200% effectiveness, this now has like 300% effectiveness, this has gained all this damage, and it's kind of like, probably maths out to be the same, or maybe slightly better in the case of you using just those things, but now you have less options, which is kind of lame, which I'm not a big fan of. I'm also not that happy with the nerfs they're doing to Cluster Trap and Multi-Trap. They haven't done anything to Swift Assembly, so now you might be using Swift Assembly more. There might even be some cases where, with maybe, say, Lightning Trap, you don't even run Cluster Trap or Multi, you only run Lightning Trap, and you just put loads of extra support gems on it for pure damage scaling. Possibly. I don't think you could necessarily get away with that with something like Ice Trap or Explosive Trap, because your just map clear wouldn't be good enough. Cluster Trap is still going to be a good support gem, but it's got such a massive penalty on there. It feels pretty rough mechanically. So that I'm not a big fan of. That being said, you still have Swift Assembly as an option. There is still a Trap Mastery. It gives you a chance to throw additional traps, so it's a very low percentage. And the base Incursion Gloves have chance to throw additional traps. So maybe you go that way with it now. And I like that the base Incursion Gloves are more attractive compared to the upgraded ones. So in that sense, it's kind of cool. The main big loss you'll have there, though, is when it comes to using the trap support gems, so stuff like Art Traps, Exsanguinate Trap. Exsanguinate Trap is going to be very rough. Seismic Trap did see some nerfs, but Seismic Trap itself will still be very, very strong. They basically gave it the same nerfs they gave to Toxic Rain a couple of leagues ago, where they changed the AoE scaling. I always thought that not enough people were scaling duration. I always thought that scaling duration was better than scaling AoE, because you could do really dumb things with like AoE breakpoints, but I felt like that needed more investment, and it was more of like a very min-max trade league kind of thing, whereas anyone could just take the duration wheels, but that's a different thing. Seismic, still good, but with the Exsanguinate Trap nerfs, if you were to do like Explosive Trap plus Seismic Trap, still going to be litty. If you're doing a physical, like a Blade Fall or something, but like a physical spell build, you could still just add Seismic Trap in for additional single target. Seismic Trap is still going to be very, very strong. Also on that note, Dot Fire Trap. Dot Fire Trap was already good with the changes that it had last league, and now they've buffed it more. They've nerfed the Ignite stuff, but a lot of people are just scaling the pure Burning Ground. So that might be a build. Let's get into bows. So they've nerfed Hydrosphere. Hydrosphere had a pretty degenerate mechanic where you could just like double your damage pretty much, or get a massive multiplier with chaining from the boss to the Hydrosphere. Blah, 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 blah. Silly. Hydrosphere now has a cooldown. I think it was like 1 second or something. Kind of sucks, but while it was kind of fun that you had that as a mechanic, it was like such a night and day difference for the builds that could use it. And GG said this themselves, that they made the balancing really difficult, because you either have to balance around that mechanic existing, or you don't balance around that mechanic existing, and then it's just completely and utterly busted. So I think it's better that they've nerfed it, and things at a baseline can be stronger than them having to nerf around these extreme like use cases. And that seems to generally be what they're doing with the bow attack skills. So again, you've had some nerfs, like added cold, added lightning. They're nerfing stuff like Void Fletcher, they're saying, but they're bringing some new quiver base types out. They're buffing quivers quite substantially by the looks of things. They've buffed the available flat damage you can get on bows itself. This is a very big buff for SSF players. When it comes to someone like Grimro, or someone who's doing like a crazy min-maxed trade league thing, then your build might actually be worse. But it's probably a situation of like, if you had all your current gear and everything, like deck stacking or whatever, that might be worse. But if you then to craft new bows with these new mods and new quivers and everything, it will either be better or at least the same. So that's good. I'm happy about that. A big change, which seems minor, but it's actually quite substantial, is they've removed, there was a bow master which gave you movement speed and phasing on kill. That's gone bye-bye. That's a very big hit for stuff like Toxic Rain. Toxic Rain itself has seen some damage nerfs, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it'll still be a very good starter build. I think, personally, the phasing nerf is a bigger nerf. I know a lot of people played Raider anyway, but that was a big thing for non-raiders. Caustic Arrow is buffed. It lost the phasing from that thing, but they've made quivers look very powerful now, so you'll gain some damage from quivers. If you were a pure Caustic Arrow build, yay. If you were Caustic Arrow plus Toxic Rain build, then but Toxic Rain will still be great. Explosive Arrow is looking very strong, and if you wanted to league start as a bow build next league, I would say Explosive Arrow is very safe. Explosive Arrow has actually been pretty good for a couple of leagues now. I've actually seen a couple of YouTubers talk about Explosive Arrow, and they must be very happy now because their builds are suddenly a lot stronger, either as Ignite or as hit-based. I still think it would be nice to see more non-crit bow builds. I didn't see anything in there that really addresses that. They even said themselves, like, oh, bows have to go crit. And it's like, yeah. And then, are you doing anything about that? Like, no, but we've given bows more damage. And it's like, right, but you're still going crit. I've always thought that Ellie Overload should be more accessible for elemental attack builds in the bottom part of the tree. It's not. It sucks. We could potentially see maybe a rise of Impale bow builds. Like Impale Resolute Technique. I would really like to see that. I would really, really like to see that. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. So, yeah, overall, I'd say it's a pretty reasonable set of changes. Hopefully the spell stuff lands. Hopefully the bow stuff lands. I feel like the poor state generally, unless you've got a lot of currency, for bow builds and spell builds has been very limiting for the player base. So if those can feel better, especially in a league start scenario, that should be massive for just the average person. And also just someone coming into the game new, since, you know, it's quite a big draw to be like, oh, I'm playing something new, I want to play with a bow, or I want to be a witch. You know, like, the amount of people, so the whole thing like Enki's Arc Witch Guide and everything, it's just like, people see Witch, like, yeah, I want to cast spells. So that being stronger, even if it isn't the new best build, that just being stronger at base level will be very good for just new players coming into 3.17. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what the other changes are. Main takeaway, determination still OP. I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Bye-bye.